I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. On today's show, I'm going to be hitting on the NFC West. Wanted my man Shed to be on the show, but, with the Labor Day festivities, fantasy football leagues all around the board for everyone, it hasn't been as easy, but I am willing to bet that he'll be on our weekly previews starting this coming week. So I'm going to give a detailed rundown of how I see the NFC West playing out. I am also going to be revisiting the NFC North, a division which roughly a week ago I picked the Minnesota Vikings to win, but there was a big trade that went down between the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. So I'm going to reassess a few things that I had going on there. And the iconic Yankee legend Yogi Berra tied by Aaron Judge in franchise home runs for the New York Yankees yesterday. Going to be hitting on that and going to be starting on that. Truly incredible. The captain, Aaron Judge. It just seems like every year he is achieving a milestone, whether it be overall in the game of baseball or for the team he's employed by, the New York Yankees. And Yogi Berra was the winner of all winners, the most winningest baseball player ever. And a guy that no matter how many accolades he gets, I naturally feel has always been overlooked by the institution, by Major League Baseball, because of some of the comedic value that was attached to who he was as a person. But Yogi Berra, one of two number eights retired by the New York Yankees. Of course, Bill Dickey is the other. And I'm sure if he were still alive, he would be so very pleased with the player, the man, and the kind of captain that Aaron Judge has been. It was in a losing effort as the Yankees were not able for achieving the 4-game sweep, busting up their 7-game winning streak. But it's a shift in attention to one of their more hated rivals as they're going to be taking on the Houston Astros starting tomorrow. And I think it's an advantage Yankees because the Astros actually have to play a game today. It's a travel day for the Yankees, and they're going to be dealing with the Astros in a very big series. And I must admit, given the history of these two organizations, it is always stick when the Houston Astros and the New York Yankees kick it off. But I've got to say, just Aaron Judge, in addition to being a great player, always seems to know what to say. And when he alluded to the fact of how important it was for a guy like Yogi Berra to wear the pinstripes in the first place, and how Aaron Judge, at every opportunity he gets, reminds the media why being a Yankee means so much to him, it speaks volumes on why he didn't take the easy money or the bigger money to be a part of the San Francisco Giants and others that were willing to pay more than the Yankees were a couple of seasons ago. But this is a big deal. When you're on a list that includes the likes of Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth. It's the creme de la creme of guys who wore the pinstripes. And, quickly climbing up that home run list, it's it's remarkable. There is no other word to put. It is truly remarkable what Aaron Judge has done. And he'll be the first to say that he's not as worried about the accolades as he is getting the ultimate prize, which is playing great baseball in October and ultimately winning a world championship. Because truthfully, when you look at what Aaron Judge has done, a two-time league MVP, some people feel that he should be a three-time league MVP were it not for being edged out in his rookie season by Jose Altuve. And this is the list here, guys. This is baseball royalty. You have Babe Ruth at 1, Mickey Mantle at 2, Lou Gehrig at 3, and in a couple of weeks, maybe a week, maybe a few days, he will catch the Yankee Clipper, Joe DiMaggio, as he's currently tied with Yogi at 358. This was going into yesterday's contest. Max Fried will be on the bump tomorrow for the Bombers, and it is going to be playoff atmosphere from here on in. When you're in the month of September, teams vying for postseason position, it's the dog days for sure, and it's where everything just really gets thick. And this is the team they're going to be running into, the Houston Astros, as they have a lot to be playing for as well, as both the Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners are still in reach of the American League West and catching those Astros. And I do believe that you're going to see a lot of high playoff intensity, and it's what makes baseball fun this time of the year. Because with the expanded playoffs, more teams have the opportunity to make the postseason later in the year, where in other years they would be on the outside looking in. This year's the American League Central and AL East standings, and as you can see, the Bombers are barely above a team that has had their number this year, the Boston Red Sox, and the Toronto Blue Jays, who have considerably cooled off, are in a fragile position to say the least. So going down the stretch, I believe that this is a situation where you're going to see three teams being sent to the playoffs from the American League East, and it almost seems inevitable that the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox are going to be on a collision course. And I think ultimately the bigger question is which of these two teams will have home advantage in that series. I beg to question if the Yankees have the advantage if it's in the Bronx, because I personally feel that the dimensions of Fenway Park could potentially favor the Yankees in a short series. But it's going to be very intense. And I think it's something that's good for baseball when you have the Red Sox and the Yankees both being in the mix at the same time. Anybody that revisits the 90s and the early 2000s, it was all out war. But congratulations to Aaron Judge. Yogi Berra, if you haven't, and if you love baseball, if you love the New York Yankees, check out It Ain't Over Till It's Over on Netflix. I must admit, I was actually brought to tears at the end of it. Just done really well. And it just dives into so much more than what this person meant on the diamond. And he was a phenomenal catcher, a phenomenal baseball player, and someone who, no matter how much he did, just doesn't get all the accolades that he deserves for a litany of unfair reasons. But Yogi Berra was nothing short of pure class. And I view Aaron Judge in that same regard. And, you know, I hope that Aaron Judge's ultimate baseball fate doesn't end up similar to Don Mattingly as being the only Yankee captain to not ride off into the sunset with a World Series championship. Mattingly is on a short list of guys, the best players to not walk away with a World Series, especially even a shorter list when you consider that it's the New York Yankees. But that has been the one Waterloo of Aaron Judge's legacy, is that he has not produced up to his standards in October. And, this is a guy that's very hard on himself, a guy that usually takes all the blame but doesn't look for too much credit, as he loves to spread the credit around to his Yankee teammates. That is part of the reasons why he is the captain. And, a lot of people were skeptical when Juan Soto left. that Judge was not going to be able to produce at the same level, having different forms of protection in that lineup. But Aaron Judge, when you look at the greatest right-handed sluggers in the history of the game, he is definitely checking all the boxes to be the number one when it's all said and done. And you have names like Alex Rodriguez, you have names like Albert Pujols, among others. But he is going to definitely be in consideration of that. And, while it's not the most likely scenario, his American League home run record of 62 a couple of years back is actually in potential jeopardy. But Cal Raleigh would have to get really hot. What Cal Raleigh has done this year is incredible as well, him being a fellow catcher similar to Yogi, breaking Johnny Bench's home run record for that position. And it is going to be awfully exciting. You have so many teams in this American League that can represent the league in the Fall Classic, because one thing that I've alluded to on my show in recent weeks is that, with the exception of maybe the Detroit Tigers, who have Tarek Skubal, and maybe if the Texas Rangers make the playoffs, who have a guy like a Jacob deGrom, who's a perennial Cy Young candidate, there are no teams approaching the dance that have that for sure shutdown guy. Carlos Rodon and Max Fried at different junctures of their career have played that role, but truthfully, in the American League, it is so very wide open. It could be the Yankees. It could be the Astros. It could be the Tigers. It could be the Blue Jays. It could be a team that you don't see coming that sneaks in. Say if the Kansas City Royals or the Texas Rangers get hot in this final month, knocking out one of the teams that I think is going, which of course would be from the American League East. But baseball's ratings are back, and it's the sport in general is just in a very healthy place. So I look forward to seeing how so much of this plays out. But we're going to shift our attention to the NFC West, a division that I will be covering today. Last year's divisional champions, the Los Angeles Rams, were a couple of plays away from going to the NFC title game, as they were displaced and playing motivated football last year during the California wildfires. And I really do like what the Rams have on this roster. They allowed longtime receiver, former Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp to join a division rival in Seattle. They replace him with Devontae Adams. Most of his career, a bona fide number one receiver, predominantly with the Green Bay Packers. In between, a couple of failed missions with the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as the New York Jets, where he and Rodgers tried to recapture some magic. He tried to recapture some magic with his great friend, Derek Carr. But now he's in a situation where he has another Super Bowl winning quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They have a very good offensive line. They have a terrific running back, Notre Dame standout in Kyron Williams. They have Blake Corum that's going to be in the mix helping out. And when you look at the way that they replenished their defense amid the retirement departure of the legendary Aaron Donald, this is a team that I personally think, were it not for a false start last year in that snow game, would have defeated the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams are a team that, in my opinion, has all the ingredients to potentially represent the NFC and ultimately win a Super Bowl this year. They are loaded. This is a team that has the ability to do something very special this year. And I am expecting that the Los Angeles Rams will do just that. Going into the season, I look for someone in this division that can truly be a challenge to the Rams. And while I think that you're not going to go undefeated in a division where there's so much familiarity and intensity, I do think this is a Rams team that could potentially win 4 to 5 divisional games, which already is huge. But I'm going to go high on the Rams going into this new season, and I'm going to put them as my number one seed in the NFC. I got them as the number one seed, finishing with a very strong record of 13-4. And I believe they will go 5-1 in their division. And if I had to pick a week that they lose or a team that they lose to, I'm going to say that they have a split with the San Francisco 49ers, as Kyle Shanahan over the years has had a good bunch of success against head coach Sean McVay. But give me the Los Angeles Rams as the 1 seed and as a legitimate contender. Puka Nakua opposite Devontae Adams. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the only thing that I think could potentially derail the Rams train is if the persistent back problems of Matthew Stafford act up. But this is a team that has everything on paper to be that team. And undeniably, these guys are a bona fide contender. Just bear with me. I've got a decent amount of photos here that I'm looking to dump. But yeah, looking over their schedule, I see 13 wins. 13 wins and a potential Super Bowl. But one thing that the Rams are going to have to get better at, or maybe the Rams fan base has to get better at, is forming a bit of a better home field advantage, because we've seen it over the years in SoFi that other fan bases have more or less been able to nullify the Rams crowd. It's more of a kind of like a vacation spot and not necessarily that hard home field advantage. And I think that's the one thing that could give the Rams a little bit of issue here. San Francisco 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, the everything back. We hope that he has a healthy season. They bring in Brian Robinson from the Washington Commanders, also joining Isaac Garendo as backups in that backfield. They lost Mason. He's now a member of the Vikings. But I believe that they are a team that's going to have the ability to hang around with most. I think their defense, especially bringing back Robert Saleh on the coaching staff, is going to be more up to their standard and what we have seen as good 49er football over the years. This is a team that has consistently made title games, and they have made 2 Super Bowls since the 2019 season, both times coming up short to Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs. I don't have them as a Super Bowl team this year. Deebo Samuel, while I think it could be the right move for the organization to move on from him, he is now a member of the Commanders. I'm not sure who fills that role. You got young receivers. You've got Ricky Pearsall. You've got Jawan Jennings. And you've got a healing Brandon Ayuk. Now, Brandon Ayuk, not a move that I was a big fan of bringing him back, and at the money they brought him back at, as he held out most of training camp last year. His season was ended very early. I expect big things out of tight end George Kittle. I think he's going to be entering top 4 again, possibly 5 again, of fantasy relevance. As Travis Kelce, his final season potentially in the NFL, I think he's going to go out with a bang. And I think those Kansas City Chiefs are going to throw the ball a lot. But when I look at the 49ers, I question if their window has closed in terms of being a Super Bowl contender. I'm going to say perhaps, because they are not the youngest team by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to be fighting for a final wild card spot with their division rivals, the Arizona Cardinals. Give me the 49ers for a respectable 9-8 record, just missing the playoffs. I have them just falling short of the playoffs. And truthfully, I have a similar fate for their divisional rivals, the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Cardinals, under Jonathan Gannon, have grown as a team. I think James Conner is one of the more underrated backs in the NFL. I think second-year man Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a bigger year than his rookie year. And I think Trey McBride, who's one of the premier tight ends in the NFL, is going to have a really nice season. I think they are a fringe 7 seed. But once again, I am not convinced that Kyler Murray in the big games during the year, talking about the final 4 to 6 weeks, is going to be able to make enough plays to get them there. I like their defense. I like their running game. Trey Benson, the backup for Connor, I think is going to be more of a contributor this year. But also give me the Arizona Cardinals at 9-8, just missing the playoffs. I think they could hurt a few people's aspirations of getting in, one of them being the 49ers. But I think the 49ers and the Cardinals both finish with the same record. I'll edge the Cardinals for second place in that division, but it will not be good enough for the final wild card. And that leaves us with the Seattle Seahawks, who gave Sam Darnold a nice contract after his success in Minnesota. The team was one and done in the playoffs, no fault of his own, as their offensive line just crumbled against the Rams' front seven. He was sacked 8 times to my recollection in that game, and it was just a really tough one. But Sam Darnold, for the first time in his career, really showing teams what he could do when he plays a full season and has the right offensive tutelage and offensive weaponry around him. You know, last year he had the luxury of having guys like T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, as well as Justin Jefferson. And, Aaron Jones played well last year as well at the running back position. Very motivated Aaron Jones, who was unceremoniously dumped by the Green Bay Packers. When I look at this Seattle team, I see a team that's going to make a commitment early and often to running the ball. But when you have a departure like a DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, who I see as a gunslinger leaving town, he's now a Vegas Raider. I'm not quite sure if Sam Darnold could get the same production. And, I don't look at Cooper Kupp as a number one receiver anymore. I don't even think this is the right offense for Cooper Kupp to be the player that he was over the years. Now, you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is part of the reason why the team felt that they can move on from veterans like Lockett, like Metcalf. And I do like the two-headed monster of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I think Charbonnet is capable of putting up running back one numbers in the event that Walker does get injured. And Walker has had a propensity for missing games. But I don't think the Seattle Seahawks have enough to make the playoffs. I think this is a division that's going to beat the crap out of each other, unless if you're the Rams. I think the Rams are a couple of notches above the rest. But I do think Seattle's going to have a respectable year. But give me 8-9 and a last place finish for the Seattle Seahawks, as I just don't think they have enough playmakers on offense. I think the defense is going to keep them in games. I think the running game is going to keep them in games. But I view the Seahawks as a team that is not quite there yet. I think the Los Angeles Rams are going to enjoy a 5-1 record in this division. And like I said, out of respect for the Shanahan-McVay chess match, I think that the 49ers will get one victory over the Rams. Could it be a victory that propels them into the playoffs? It wouldn't shock me. It certainly wouldn't shock me. But I think this is a division that's only sending one team to the playoffs. But I think that one team has a bona fide chance of winning the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford would have his second Super Bowl if that is the case. And this is a guy that did a lot of losing, even though playing at a high level all those years in Detroit. And, speaking of Detroit, we're going to move it over to the NFC North. This is a division that I predicted the Green Bay Packers finished third in less than a week ago. That, of course, was before the trade for Micah Parsons. How much does Micah Parsons influence the difference here? I personally think Micah Parsons is the kind of guy that can enhance your win total up to 3 games. Now, I had the Packers right around 9-8 coming into the season, a good team that's just not going to get enough done. And assuming Jordan Love misses a couple of games, because he has had an unfortunate propensity for missing a few games, I believe that, hey, Noah. Sorry, guys, just bear with me. My son is bringing my dog out. You taking her for a walk, bub?
Yeah.
It's raining out here. Are you sure you want to do that?
No, I'm not sure.
Why don't you take her in, and then when I'm done with my show, I'll take care of this, because I don't like you in the rain. Does that make sense?
All right, just hold her on the leash.
All right. I'm doing a show, though, Bubby, so.
You should hold her just so she doesn't poop. She peed on Mom.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with the viewing audience. Goofball. All right, listen, would you mind taking her in? I do want to finish what I'm saying here, though.
I'll just try her.
Thank you, babe. But try to avoid, maybe take her under the big tree so that way you don't get too wet over here. Thank you, son. Sorry about that, guys. I am happy that he's motivated to do some chores, though. All right, where was I? We were talking about the NFC North. Green Bay Packers. I'm going to talk about what I see as the good. You know, Jordan Love, in my opinion, had a regression last year, I think, in part due to the fact that in week one, he injured himself. And I think when it comes to lower extremity injuries, you two kind of play catch up for the rest of the year. I love the golden pick. The Matthew Golden pick, University of Texas. I think the Green Bay Packers finally got their man who could be a number one receiver. This is something that the organization has not had since losing Devontae Adams. This is a team that desperately needed that number one. I think Tucker Kraft, one of the more underrated tight ends, he and Jordan Love have a good thing going. And Josh Jacobs in any given season is a top 5 running back. And in that division, you need to be able to run the rock to put people away. I like Jaden Reed a lot because similar to how the 49ers used to deploy Debo Samuel, this is a player that the Green Bay Packers could do a lot with. They could line him up in the backfield. He could play the slot. He could be a possession guy. This is a receiver that now that you have a real number one, I think is going to shine even more. Jordan Love, in my opinion, is going to have a lot of pressure taken off of him because I think their defense, while already being a good unit before acquiring Micah Parsons, now enters the conversation as being a top 5 unit. You have a guy like Xavier McKinney, who had a wonderful year one with them after the New York Giants did not invest in him. Another former Giant, Isaiah Simmons, while being a special teams guy at a high level, I think could find success in certain packages with this Packer team where he could finally have a defined position. Micah Parsons pretty much checks the boxes on almost every level of being an elite player. If there's something that Micah Parsons possibly needs to get a little better at, is being better against the run. But in terms of how you could line him up, in terms of just his that overall athleticism and his ability to get to the quarterback, and when you consider like a guy like Gary also in that defense, this is a team that is loaded. This is a team that could potentially win a Super Bowl. I've got the Green Bay Packers finishing as the 3 seed in the NFC with a solid record of 12-5. 12-5 for the Green Bay Packers and a potential Super Bowl contender. And should they run into the Rams, they have had a great deal of success against them over the years. But I do believe that potentially a second round matchup between them and the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be huge, as last year the Packers had plenty of opportunities to beat the Eagles, to make more plays, and they just came up short. But they definitely had opportunities. I think this particular Packers roster is going to be much better and a team that can finish in January going into February. Yes, Noah. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, she can go to work party because she was forcing me to go inside.
Don't worry. I got the touch with that. I'll take care of her. Don't worry about it. I'm going to finish this show here, though, okay? Can't talk too much at the moment. It's the weather, too, babe. She doesn't really care for the rain. That's why I was going to wait to take her out. All right, so I got Green Bay winning this division. Solid record of 12-5. My number 2 team in this division, I'm not going to sway off of what I already said. Give me the Minnesota Vikings, but give me them at 11-6. I'm going to drop them down one game. As a couple of days ago, I had them finishing first. I believe that the Green Bay Packers will win a game against Minnesota that's going to sway the tide in this division. I got Green Bay with a 4-2 record in this division. 2 of their losses, one each to the Lions as well as the Vikings. Both of those, I believe, will be on the road. I think Green Bay is going to win week 1 in Lambeau in Micah's debut with the squad. So give me the Minnesota Vikings, strong finish, 11-6, and I believe that'll be good enough for the 5 seed. Second place finish. They will play the worst division winner. And the worst division winner in my opinion, let's see. I'm going to have Philly as the 2. We got the Rams in the West. That would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when I say worst, I think the Bucs got a damn good team. And I think that'll be a damn good first round matchup. But I think Minnesota might find a similar fate that they did last year in round 1. Detroit Lions, I've been teetering on 10-7 or 11-6. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give the Lions a record of 11-6. But my bigger worry about the Detroit Lions is that they lost 2 big parts of their coaching staff. Aaron Glenn is gone. He's now head coach of the New York Jets. Ben Johnson is gone. He stays in the division with the Chicago Bears. I got the Lions finishing 11-6 as the 6th seed. That would draw a first round matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles, which could probably be very, very entertaining. But in Philly, it would be hard for me to choose the Lions to win that first round matchup. I would have to go with the team from the East, even if it's the team I hate more than anyone else. Now, rounding it out, who would be my 7 seed? Well, I'll tell you right now, it's not the Dallas Cowboys. Although I want it to be, it's probably not my New York Giants, but I might be able to change my mind before the East preview. I think the 7 seed will probably be the Washington Commanders, who I believe will be able to finish probably second in the East. I haven't done my East preview yet, but I'll unveil that I do think that the Commanders will probably finish second in the East. Good enough for the final wild card spot. But if the New York Giants are a couple of steps ahead of what the trajectory is, man, would that be some story in year 1 to turn it around with this new regime meaning the regime of quarterbacks. Of course, not what's going on upstairs. Last but not least, the Chicago Bears. I'll be honest, kids, I don't believe in Caleb Williams. I don't. I think you'd have to be crazy. I've said it on previous shows to pick Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams in any to not pick Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams in any situation. The Bears will be better, but I don't think they'll be better in the sense that they're going to be a playoff team. I don't see more than 7 wins on this schedule. Give me 7-10 for the Chicago Bears. Colston Loveland, though, I do think he's going to have a nice season. But unfortunately, I just don't think Caleb Williams is the guy. I mean, will he be able to prove me wrong? I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick, which puts a lot of pressure out of the gates. And when you see guys in your class like Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels achieve what they did last year, both engineering playoff runs for their teams, Jaden was a game away from the Super Bowl. There's a lot of pressure on the Chicago Bears, more so Caleb Williams this particular year. I just don't think they have enough to hang in this particular division. And I think that's going to be the difference between them being a team on the outside looking in versus a playoff hopeful, because I don't think they're going to have much success in this division. I'm going to be generous. And I don't even know if generous is the right word, but I believe there's only going to be a max of 2 wins in this division for that team, possibly 1. I got them getting swept by the Packers. I got them getting swept by the Lions. I think they'll split with the Vikings. But the Chicago Bears are just not there yet. And while many have speculated over the years that Caleb Williams coming in, I say over the years, I mean going back to his college profile, that he would be a franchise quarterback. And of course, I've said this over the years on my show. The Bears have never truly had a franchise quarterback in the Super Bowl era. It's pretty crazy when you consider that other teams in this division have been able to find that guy over the years. The Bears have never been able to truly do that. I mean, the legendary 85 Bears had Jim McMahon, who I think was the perfect quarterback for that kind of team. He had a linebacker's mindset, which is a great compliment for any quarterback, similar to a compliment that Brett Favre usually got. 7-10 for the Chicago Bears, wrapping it up. So the big change in my predictions is that I got the Green Bay Packers jumping from 3-1. I think that's the Micah Parsons effect. Green Bay Packers will most definitely be a Super Bowl contender. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check out the V Mix, the Vicious Mix with my guy, Idris Salam, on live365.com radio. Give that a look, most definitely for sure. Check out the Basement Show with our guy, Johnny Nast, as well as the Sports Corner. They are hustling over there. Really awesome podcaster and a guy that I'm going to reach out to see if he wants to be on the East show. And speaking of that East show, that will be coming up in the next few days as the season starts on Thursday. Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, banner night at the Link. They will be opening up the season. So for the second consecutive year, Philadelphia in a high ratings draw game. You know, last year they opened it up in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers. I'm really happy football's back. I personally can't wait to talk about the NFC East, the division with the most Lombardi trophies. It's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to see how Russell Wilson handles the pressures of being the New York Giants quarterback. And how long will he be a quote unquote placeholder for quarterback of the future, Jackson Dart, who had a phenomenal preseason? Malik Neighbors finally has guys in the quarterback room that can maximize his potential. I think Wandell Robinson, unfortunately, is going to have some playing time cut short because of the fact that Neighbors feels comfortable in the slot, and you're not going to take Neighbors off the field for damn near anything. Darius Slayton goes back to his college number. I have a feeling that he could really benefit off of the Russell Wilson deep ball and playing opposite of Malik Neighbors in a better offense this year. I think Darius Slayton's production could be the best of his Giants career. I'm happy that the Giants reinvested in Slayton, as I think that he has put up decent numbers considering that the quarterback play in his Giants tenure has been subpar. And part of that subpar is Daniel Jones. All I'm going to say is I wish him the best. Although he was clearly not the guy in New York, the one thing that I admired about Daniel Jones is that he never shied away from blame, and he always gave 100% in less than adequate situations. The times that that guy had the rug pulled around him on coaches was just never really for his benefit, and I think that he is a kid that does have some talent, but you just hope that the time in New York hasn't completely burned him down, similar to how we've seen with other quarterbacks that have been beaten up over the years. You look at guys like Derek Carr, who took, a big beating. David Carr, excuse me, who took a big beating as the original Texan, and we've seen it with others, guys that took too many beatings that in their second chance of employment in the league just were pretty much burned out. But it's a perfect situation for Daniel Jones. So good luck to you, Daniel. No hard feelings. I just think the Giants made a huge mistake the way they did it, and it took me a while to see that because I did defend you often. NFC East is our next and final divisional preview. Announcements to come for that. Enjoy your Labor Day, everyone. Call the Ubers, call the Lyfts. Don't take no chances, guys. Let's be safe out there. I'm out.